Japanese automakers are well known for producing high quality, reliable vehicles at affordable prices, but they're also notorious for coming out with a really slow production cycle, but that's all about to change. We're over at Nikkei Asia. Mazda, Toyota, Denso join new cost-cutting auto design alliance, and it doesn't stop there. There are many more companies, and the whole purpose of this is to reduce costs and to speed up the development of battery electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, carbon neutral vehicles. You guys kind of get the drift of this. So in a bid to accelerate development and cut costs, 10 Japanese automakers and major part suppliers said Friday they will standardize the way they design vehicles. It doesn't mean they're all going to be sharing the same platforms or the same engines or the same transmissions, but it's going to put the automakers and the suppliers on the same page like never before. And it's also going to increase the speed on which new models come out and possibly decrease the cost, but mainly on their side. They don't have to spend as much to get the vehicles out the door. So here we are, Mazda, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Subaru. Now you might be thinking there are a couple other brands in there, like maybe Daihatsu. Well, Daihatsu is essentially Toyota. Isuzu is probably in there somewhere. Suzuki might eventually join on board. So this is definitely not a closing of the deal, it's just the beginning with the largest manufacturers on board. So those small ones that I mentioned will probably come on board, if not be bought out by some of these larger companies eventually. So the suppliers are Denso, which Denso is essentially Toyota's right-hand arm of parts. And they've been owned entirely by Toyota before in the past. Panasonic, which we all know them for their batteries, but Panasonic creates a little bit of everything from toothbrushes to face shavers to TVs. So I'm sure they probably still make TVs, etc. Mitsubishi Electric. So interestingly, we don't see Mitsubishi Motors in here because that's essentially Nissan, right? So Mitsubishi Electric is a huge part supplier, and Mitsubishi is one of the largest companies in the world. You know, we tend to think of their vehicles, but they also produce air conditioners. They have one of the largest banks in the world. Mitsubishi is huge. So it's good to see them on board with this. Aishin, which is famous for making bulletproof transmissions that we see in many vehicle manufacturers, Toyota being, of course, the biggest one that Aishin is cooperating with. But we also see Aishin transmissions in like the Volvo vehicles with their 8-speed. Is essentially the same 8-speed as we see in Lexus vehicles. So that's ridiculous. And Jatco is kind of the same thing, but for Nissan. Jatco has a bad reputation with their CVTs. But yeah, we're not going to go down that road. But Jatco is also now making the 9-speed transmissions that are in the new Frontier, the new Pathfinder, the new QX60, the 9-speed transmission, rear-wheel drive transmission that is also, like I said, in the Frontier, but we'll also see it in the new Nissan Z. I want to call it the 400Z, but yeah, it's just the Z. So bringing all these companies together is expected to stoke competitiveness in Japan's auto industry as its limits are tested by electric vehicles and new technologies like autonomous driving. So with part makers becoming a little bit more streamlined to go into all these vehicles, I think we're going to see a lot of systems become more similar, especially with autonomous driving and let's say all the safety features. I feel like in just a short amount of time, we could be seeing the same safety features in a Lexus as we do in a Nissan. Don't quote me on that, but that could be the result of this over time. So Mazda has came out with this digital designing approach first. For a small manufacturer, they shouldn't necessarily be around and be making as good vehicles as they do. They've been doing things the smart way, producing vehicles inside of a computer to test them instead of the long, more expensive way of designing prototypes and testing them. Mazda goes to say, we don't have the luxury of spending time to iron out differences. We'll improve efficiency where we can so that we can focus on investing in such areas as environmental technologies. In a model-based system, every part is rendered in digital form so that a virtual car can be created. Simulations let designers see which parts cause malfunctions or increase wind resistance. This approach is cheaper and faster than building and running actual physical prototypes. prototypes. This is actually how Mazda came out with the Skyactiv technology, and it's allowed Mazda to have the time needed to develop engines using model-based development. They're saying part suppliers have been slow to join the shift. Small, mid-sized companies have less room in their budgets for hiring tech-savvy engineers. Many lower-tier suppliers that rely on the skills of veteran machinists have not embraced digital design and development. One of the goals of the new organization is to help smaller companies, smaller supply companies, by providing technological and other support. So they're creating unified rules to facilitate model-based development, and creating this industry standard will eliminate the need for part suppliers to modify designs to meet the custom rules of each manufacturer, saving time and money. European auto industry has also introduced model-based development with Daimler, BMW, Bosch, Continental, and other automakers and suppliers have joined the hands. So Japan's a little behind the times here, but I'd still say they're probably light years ahead of the domestic manufacturers, and probably still behind in terms of the development side of things compared to Hyundai. You gotta realize Korea's even a more tight-knit society. They just came out with their hydrogen coalition, ranging from LG to Samsung to Hyundai. That's going to be crazy, ushering a new era of hydrogen in Korea, and it should spread from there, especially places like Germany and Japan, and maybe China over time, but that's a hard one to say. So it's good to see this coalition come together from the small manufacturers of parts and even the largest of manufacturers of vehicles such as Toyota, them all coming together, and there'll be more small companies and maybe even larger companies like I mentioned, Isuzu, coming in, joining the industry-wide standards so they can produce vehicles cheaper and faster, and that should bring new vehicles here to the United States, fingers crossed, more quickly, and that's what we want. We always want new products, right? If the phone's got it down, there's a new iPhone, there's a new phone every single year. Samsung, there's a new one every single year. I feel like the Koreans have done that the best, coming out with new models or new refreshes every 2 to 3 years. I mean, they're just killing it in that regard. So we'll see that sort of uptick happen on the Japanese side of things, but it probably will be another 3 to 5 years before we see this acceleration take place. That's what I'm guessing. And while I have you here, Toyota's rethinking Toyotathon, Lexus, they're rethinking the December to Remember. December to Remember has been out for over 20 years now. And why would Toyota and Lexus even want to invest hundreds of millions of dollars? I'm assuming it's probably hundreds of millions of dollars of advertising during the holidays if all their vehicles are already sold out because of the supply shortage? And that's a big question. So it looks like what they're going to do, just to kind of summarize this article, is that December to Remember for Lexus, yes, they'll have incentives, but they're not going to advertise the same way they used to. It's not going to be focusing on reducing the previous model year's inventory, because that's all gone at this point. It's going to be more focused on their new products coming out, like the new NX and maybe the new LX if we get that announced before the end of the year. It's really hard to say at this point. And for Toyota, they'll be focusing probably more on the Tundra, some of their new products, maybe their hybrids. They're not going to have to focus so much about reducing inventory or clearing out old stock because they don't have any of the old stock. So it was cool seeing Lisa Matarazzo in this article, as well as Andrew Gillen, who I've had breakfast and lunch and dinner with these guys over the past few months. So it's really great to be able to get to know them and get the insight of people high up inside Toyota and Lexus. Like, it's pretty cool. But anyways, I'm gonna end it there. What do you think of today's news? Japanese cars coming, maybe faster, maybe cheaper, time will tell, right? And Toyotathon, December to Remember. It's not going to be the most memorable December to remember for Lexus. Sales are going to be down because the inventory is going to be down, and that's just the way it is for every automaker out there right now. I'm going to end it there. If you enjoyed it, smash the like button, subscribe for more Japanese, Korean auto news. Catch you in the next one. Peace out.